It's going to work. All right, so we'll start with the eye right here. And the first thing we're going to do is the pupil on that eye. Don't fill it all the way in. We're just going to come right down here, make it black, and leave that little top part white, like a little shine in the eye. Hopefully you can see that when it focuses. See how I left that little top part of it white? Yep. Don't fill in that little bitty spot at the top. You need to leave that. That puts life into the eye, so we want to make sure that that does not get filled in. Then around it, in the colored part of the eye, we're going to color really, really light. Now this is one time where we're just kind of coloring, we're not really shading. We're going to color this in a light gray, just to give it some color, so it's not white. And then the ring around the eye, I'm going to make just a little thicker, just by going around it maybe one more time, just to the outside of it, so it's not pencil width thin. Okay. So the eye itself looks like that. Okay. We do have a lot of shading we're going to do in and around it. For now, that's just the iris and the pupil that we're going to put on there. I don't know if I forgot to put it on. I don't have a template. Is there a little line on yours right here? I think I forgot to put it. So we're just going to take off the end of this. I'm just going to put a little light line that kind of just comes right off of here. Just not very big, okay? It's just like a little indentation where his side of his muzzle. And the reason I'm doing that is because the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little shadow underneath this heavy brow that he's got. And I'm even going to take that into the colored part of the eye, but I'm not going to color it in the light part, in that pupil. I'm going to carry it over here and let it get more narrow. It almost looks like an eyelash because it gets really pointy on the end. And then I'm going to bring it around the bottom of this muzzle and kind of out here to that line. Just a little darker area. And then I'm going to bring the shadow up to about right here. And that's where that's going to end. That's a cast shadow right there. And it doesn't go all the way around this because your shadow, the light's coming down this way and the shadow isn't going to be on the top of the brow. It's going to be on this left side and along the bottom edge. What I need to do really quick is pull this over here so I got the reference while I'm showing you guys. All right, now very lightly we're going to come along this bottom eyelid, and I'm just going to go super light and bring it all the way up to that bottom eyelid right here. I'm just starting down here. It's like a little wrinkle under the eye. I'm doing this really light. I'm going to do the same thing on the one below it. This is super light. And at this point, it's just coloring. That's all that is. Okay, just super, 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 super light. Barely just using the weight of the pencil to create that. And I'm going to bring that all the way over to the front of the eye and connect it with that little shadow that I made. I'm going to bring this down and up and over. Almost like we give them a little black eye, but it's a very light one. So far, it's just basically been coloring. Went with a dark value, and then we've gone with a light value. Now we will do a little micro shading, and then some of this up here, it'll get bigger, and it'll be a lot easier to see what we're doing. In fact, I might jump up to here for now to give you an idea what we're doing, and then come back to this. And this is what I'm going to do. So along the upper edge of this image, this top of this brow, I'm going to leave just a hairline of light. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in as close as I can get to this without touching that line. I want this to be super, super close. I'm just going to put a little outline. And the reason for this is this is what's called reflected light. And it separates one image from another. So if I didn't put this little reflected light here, when I color shade in this part and this part, if they're exactly the same value, it's going to just look like one big blob right there instead of one shape here and one shape there. I normally don't put this line in. I just shade up to it and leave some light. But to help you guys when we're first starting out, I'm going to just put that in, and then I'm going to color this in very lightly above the lumps and bumps on the top of his eyebrow. I'm doing this super light for right now, and then we'll come in and actually shade this in. This is just a base color on there, a very light base color. All right, hopefully everybody has that colored in. If I get way ahead, let me know. I'll try not to get too far ahead, but there is a video already posted on your canvas on how to do this if you get too far behind. So, right along this edge, now I'm going to go just a little darker by pressing slightly harder with my pencil. Just a little bit harder, and then as I move this way towards the eye, I'm going to lighten the pressure on my pencil and get lighter and lighter and lighter. I want it to be so gradual that I can't really tell where the dark starts and stops. One should just blend right into the other. So I'm taking this darker area and blending it into that super light gray that I already put on there. That actually starts to give it a little bit of dimension. It starts to look like it's a little more rounded off and has a little depth and not just colored in. Even on just that little tiny part there, it's already showing up. The key to this is not to let this reflected light, this little teeny strip of light, to get too wide. It needs to be super small, micro, like the width of your hair kind of thing. And that light comes from all the things around you. Your skin, on your face reflects light. Any object that we're doing, like the brow on this dragon and a bunch of other features on it, all the light anywhere around it would reflect right off the edges, and it does separate one subject from another. So we've got this one done. We're going to come up here and do this other brow that's on the far side of his head. And then we're going to start the same way. We're going to color it in light, but I'm not going to leave that little edge of light on this one. And here's why. And you eventually start to think this way, and hopefully it becomes second nature, and you don't have to think, oh, I need to put this here and this there. When there's nothing behind the subject, so this brow doesn't have anything behind it, I don't need reflected light right here because this is the edge and it's not trying to contrast with anything in the background. This needs reflected light because it needs to contrast with this and the muzzle and part of the head. Okay, so we're trying to make sure things separate out. Once this is colored in light, we're just going to go right from the very edge of that line and go slightly darker and blend it down into the rest of that brow. And what we're trying to do, kind of what our goal is to make as many of our lines that we drew disappear as possible. So if I make this about the same value as that line and then gradually start to blend it down, like that, it gets really hard to kind of see where that line was because now it's just part of the drawing, and that's what we want. Just a little darker on the top edge and lighter as it moves down. Now this and that contrast, and they got that little bitty reflected light right in there. Problem now is I need So on this piece of paper, we're not very far into this, but I'm going to come along and I'm going to draw a magnified version of this brow right here. So that's this brow, and then we've got this other one coming in below it. We got the eye. Okay, here's what we want to try to avoid. If we're keeping our lines really close together, everything looks smooth and even. If we start getting a lot of space, like when I say color it in first, this is the muzzle coming through here. Wait a minute. Okay, this is where that muzzle comes through here, like this. If I say, all right, color that in light, and this is how you color it in, if this is what you're doing, is that going to turn out smooth and even? No, that's scribble. We want to avoid that scribble. On here, if my fingers represent lines, my lines are tight together like my fingers are now. If I'm scribbling, there's space between my fingers, just like there's space between my lines. And if I come over here and I do the same thing, and I guess I could put those little bumps on there if I need to. And I scribble this in, and it's not even pressure, and I leave a huge gap on here. And then I come over here, and it goes, Mr. Allen says make it darker, so I'm going to make it darker up here. And you just go like this, and then you come in here and you go like this. Is that gradual from dark to light? No, it's just dark light. You didn't lighten up the pressure as you were moving down this way. If you start dark and then you press lighter, 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 less pressure on your pencil, then it will gradually go from dark to light. You want to avoid an edge like this anywhere inside your shading. You do not want it to just go dark, suddenly drastically light. Okay? So this is what not to do. If you did that a little bit already, try to avoid it for the rest of this drawing. All right, with that said, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to gray down the inside of this eye just a little bit. So I've got this right here, and I'm just going to gray it down just a little bit, and then on the bottom eyelid right here where the fold is, I'm going to go a little darker and get lighter as I move up towards the eye. Just a little darker, barely, and a little lighter as I move up towards the eye. I'm going to do the same thing with this micro tiny spot right here. It's kind of harder there because it's so small. But I'm leaving just a sliver of light in there so it doesn't blend right into the one right next to it. We're going to put these little bumps on this brow right here. And to do this, we're going to leave this right edge white and the left edge darker. So I'm just going to take whatever it is that I was doing right here, and then right here, just like that. See how I'm leaving the right edge, the right side of that white? So what you want to do is just leave that white, and then I'm going to come right along the bottom here really carefully and color that in and leave a little tiny edge of light going right above the eye. By doing that, now they look like little bumps on there instead of just little lines on there. And this is why we're doing this part first, because this is some tiny stuff we got to work in. Most of the rest of this, except for the teeth, will be larger areas that we're working, and larger's easier to do than small. So right here, I've got the muzzle coming down here, and then we got this little line here. I'm just going to connect those two up. It's kind of like a center line. Just going to bring that together just by connecting that with that one. And then I'm going to go darker on the top of this and lighter as I move down into the face. Now, I could have colored it light gray to start with, or I can just use pencil control to do this. And come in here, just push down and get lighter, 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 lighter until I get to that little crease right there. Start darker here and lighter as I move towards the nostril opening. And then a little darker here, and lighter as I move over to that next little line right there. Now the reason I don't need to put any reflected light right here, even though there's something behind it, is because this object goes from dark to light, and then this goes from dark to light, so that dark contrasts with the light behind it now. Okay, what you're trying to avoid through this whole thing is having like dark against dark or light against light, because then they don't contrast. You can't tell one subject from another. So very light gray. I'm going to come in here and color this in light gray right here on this nostril. And I'm going to color this nostril, the whole nostril flare, a very light gray. And then I'm going to go here above the teeth. And this whole area, from like the eye forward here, I'm going to just do a very, very, very light gray. When I say light, I mean I'm just using the weight of the pencil, using the side of my pencil. Hopefully none of you are using a mechanical pencil. Right now you're probably fighting a little plastic sleeve. I'm just going to come along there and just color all that into about where that point is, all light gray. Staying out of the teeth, trying to keep it smooth and even. So get that base color on there and then we'll start to change things around. Does everybody have that? Does anybody need a little more time to get that colored in? I don't see any hands. So let's go ahead inside this nostril. We're going to start dark at the top of it and then gradually get lighter as we move to the bottom of it. So that means you start dark and immediately start to lighten up the pressure. Now if you end up getting it a little too dark, that's okay on that. It is a nostril, not a lot of light gets in there. So we're not going to stress that one too much. On this nostril over here, just make it a little thicker, a little darker, a little thicker, and we're not going to worry about going from dark to light. We're just kind of darkening it in because it's just a little sliver of a hole because it's facing away from us. But it looks kind of funny to see a light nostril flare here and a light part on this part of our dragon. So we are going to blend that in here in just a second. And I know I'm going a little quick, but we are trying to beat the clock. Know that Thursday and Friday, if you, like say, if it got a little too far ahead or something, you can just watch the video and go at your own pace and get caught up. Okay, so I'm going to go just a little bit darker on this edge here, get lighter as I move down in towards the muzzle. Get a little darker right here, lighter as I move towards the nostril opening. But I don't want to be so dark that the nostril completely disappears. And then I'm going to be a little darker on this outer edge here, and lighter as I move towards the center of the muzzle right here. I'm not going to get too darn dark. Just enough to establish a nice little dark edge that's about this, and this should be about the same all the way around. Okay, there's a little line that comes up from this tooth. I'm going to go darker here and lighter as I move towards the left. Because this is casting a shadow onto that. I'm going to do a little bit of that right here too, just a little bit darker, lighter as it moves towards the left. If this is too dark in here, I can always take my eraser and just highlight it. Like that, and now it's not quite as dark. this big nostril flare here, it's going to cast a shadow onto the face. Show you what I mean. See how this casts a shadow down onto here? That's what we're going to put on next, is that little shadow right there. So we're just going to follow around here, make a similar shape, and then just darken it. And right on the top of this, I'm just barely going to come in here and just gray this down just a little bit, leaving a little bit of light above and below it. Just trying to give that a little bit of dimension. Hopefully you can see that. Just leaving this that little hair of light in there. I'm even going to make that smaller. It just needs to barely be there. And when I grade these, I want to see that you've made an effort to do that. When I say leave light, leave light. If it's a little too big or a little too small, I'm going to be pretty kind on the grading. I just want to make sure that you're at least making an attempt. Put it in where there's reflected light or shadow, okay? Make sure that you're at least following what we're trying to show you. Okay, right here, there's another little line that was like this one. We're going to go a little bit darker here and lighter as we move towards the left. And then I just let it fade out. This can be just as dark as this up here. And from here to this tooth, below this line, I'm just going to darken all of this in just a little bit so it's not quite as light as the rest of the area around it. Alright, from this indentation down to this line, I'm just going to try to blend this out, that dark that I have on there. Just going to bring it all the way underneath this and lighter, 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 lighter as I move down towards this line. So even right up by the eye. Even right up by the eye, I'm going darker here, lighter as I move down to this line. Okay, we're going to move kind of quick through here. We're going to color this area, probably, trying to decide how much I want to do, from a little bit below the mouth back out here. So just watch what I do. I'm just going to come in here and do this light gray for right now, trying to keep it smooth and even, not looking like scribble. Right underneath that line. And up here over the ear. And I'm going to take that same light color and go down this tentacle right here, but I'm not going to go all the way to the top. I'm going to leave a little bit of light on the top edge right here of this tentacle. Just go on this light gray. Coloring that whole thing in above the mouth. And I know I went fairly quick through that, but it's just coloring at this point. We're not even shading anything right now. We're just coloring at this point. Now I'll do a little shading. This is going to kind of overhang this area down here. So just for illustration purposes, we'll go to the larger area first, pressing a little harder so it's as dark as that line now to make that line go away. And then I'm just going to blend it in down below it. Just gradually getting lighter, just making the line go away and gradually blending that in. I'm going to come all the way along this right here. Do the same thing between the teeth. Let that just gradually blend in. And this little area right here in front of this big canine tooth, do the same thing and just let it gradually blend in. That does a couple of things. That makes the face kind of come forward a little bit and also makes our teeth stand out a little better, okay? We'll go up here and quickly do the ear. We're going to start darker on this top edge and just lighter as we move down into the ear and just lift our pencil right up off the page as we're moving down. So press hard and then lighter, 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 and then just lift right off. So it makes it look like there's a little hole in the ear. Similar to what we did around this nostril flare, we're going to leave a little bit of reflected light on this upper edge and then where it meets the darker part of the ear. So I'm just coming in here, going slightly darker and not taking it all the way to the top. Actually, I changed my mind. I think we will take it all the way to the top and just let it get lighter as it moves down towards the ear opening. Just like this. So the only place there is actually a little light is right there. That'll make it easier. We'll just have to make sure that when we do this part back here that we make sure it's not too dark and doesn't blend together. And I'm watching the clock as I go. I'm trying to race it just a little bit. When I ask, is everybody at this point of completion, and I don't see hands, I have to just assume you're there. And then, of course, I look at your papers when you turn them in the back, and like you have one eye done, and I'm like, why didn't you say something? Okay, so I know. So does anybody need more time to get to this point? Be honest if you do. Okay, I don't see any hands. Let's do this tentacle here. We're going to go a little darker on the bottom. I'm going to turn my paper this way because it's easier for me to press hard and go the natural way my hand wants to move, and then get lighter as I move towards the top. Now down here it's getting really narrow, so there isn't much room to adjust from dark to light, so it's just going to be just kind of dark, and then down in here it'll go from dark to light gradually. So I got a lot more room to work with. I'm following the contour of the shape that I'm shading in, so when I get down here I'm going to change directions. My line will be curved, and then lighter, 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 lighter. Lighter, 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 lighter as I move up. And the reason the bottom is darker Then the top is if the light's coming this way, this is the furthest away from the light, and this is the closest to the light. You would draw this one the same way that you did this one, and this one would be the same way as that one. So these two will be exactly shaded in just like this. The light will come along this edge and this edge, the shadow will be on this edge and this edge. Now there is one little change that's going to come on here, and this is going to cast a shadow onto this webbing that goes between this tentacle and this tentacle. But before we do that, let's just lightly color in that webbing. Just make it a light gray. Hopefully that way everybody sees where the webbing is. There's a little chunk taken out of it right there, like maybe it got bit or something, or clawed, but just make that a light gray across there. Bottom part of this, I'm just going to barely go a little bit darker and blend it immediately out above it. I don't want to go very far away from it, just a little bit, and I don't want to get very dark. I want this to stay pretty light in here. The only reason that even does anything at all is because you've got this thing sticking out closer to you, and it's going to put a slight shadow there, but not a big hard cast shadow. But right here, there is going to be a hard cast shadow. I'll wait just a second for you to get caught up, and then I'll put that on there. So whenever you do a cast shadow, it's basically going to be an imitation shape-wise as whatever it is that's casting the shadow. In this case, it's this tentacle here. So I'm going to come along here, I'm putting a line in here just to make this easier to figure out what I'm doing. I'm going to bring it up there, and then I'm going to bring it down here to a point. So this and this is the shadow being cast from this, so that when I color this in dark, and I'm going to go really dark with it, you can tell that one part's a tentacle and one part is a shadow. It's like that, and it's casting a shadow on to the webbing and onto the scales and stuff behind it. Now with the time we have left, I want to go ahead and get this large spike done. Then I want to do a couple of teeth and a couple of these horns. And if we get all that done before it's time to go lunch, we'll have had a good day. So now I'm going to just lightly color in, just like we did right here. We're just going to lightly color in everything a light gray. Notice how long my strokes are. I'm going really, really long. Okay. The longer they are, the less overlap you have. If I go short and I go short and I go short, well, every time I do that, it's going to overlap, and then you get kind of a rough look to your shading. You want to do your shading as long as strokes as you can using the side of your pencil. In this case, I'm just using the weight of the pencil. I'm not pushing down on it at all. I'm just trying to get this to go all the way across here. Super light. Leaving a little bit of light right at the top edge. Right along here, don't color that in dark. In fact, I might have got it too dark. I'll just come in here with my eraser and lighten that up. That's the nice thing about reflected light. You can put it back with an eraser. All right. From this top edge, we're going to go dark here and lighter as we move down this way. I'm going to leave that little bit of reflected light right there, so I'm just going to come along so I don't fill that in. Just kind of putting that little line right there. I don't really like doing that. I'd rather just go like this and start dark and then get lighter, 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 lighter as I move down. So starting dark and then just gradually getting lighter as I move down into the face. I like that better because if we get in the habit of putting a little line there, a lot of times it looks like a bunch of little lines instead of shading. But when you're first beginning, sometimes it's easier if you just know, okay, don't go past that line and leave light above it. So I'm going to go all the way to the end here, going from dark to light. If your pencil starts to catch or snag and you feel it kind of scratching, just rotate your pencil to another spot on the graphite. Mine was starting to scratch, and that's why I turned it. Now, I'm not just making this darker, I'm gradually going from dark to light. So right here and right here are not the same. This is darker, this is lighter. I don't have like a line in here just going all of a sudden dark light. It's just gradually dark to light. If you get a little frustrated and it doesn't go perfect this first time we're going through this, don't sweat it too much, okay? So we'll be doing a whole lot of it as the year goes on, and as it goes, it gets easier and easier and easier. But I do realize it's kind of like the first time for some of you doing some of this. And so for some of you it'll be a little harder, for some of you it won't be so hard. Okay, we got that one on there. Let's jump down and do a tooth. We'll do the big teeth because they're the easiest to see. Come down here, I've got these big canine teeth right here. I'm going to put a light gray halfway across this. So I'm going to go about a little over half. And this side I'm going to make light gray, and then I'm going to leave this side white. I'm going to do the same thing right here. I'm just kind of figuring out where the middle is. Do one side light gray and then leave the left side white. So for right now, just get that colored like that, and then we'll finish it up here. Okay, from the middle of this, we're going to go a little bit darker, and this is called a shadow core. Just like there's a core in an apple, it's going to go a little bit darker and then lighter as I move towards the right, and just blend it out. Do the same thing on this side, a little bit darker right in the middle, and then lighter as I move towards the right. That makes it look a little rounder than just being flat colored in. I'm going to do a tiny one right here, one of these small teeth. But I'm going to use the same principle. It'll be one side's gray, one side's white. A little bit darker in the middle. And the reason I did that is these are going to cast a shadow on here. Since the light is on this side, the shadow will be on this side. And again, we just mimic the shape that's casting the shadow. So I just come right here, mimic that shape. Color that black. I'm going to do the same thing right here. It's just to mimic the shape, It'll be small because it's kind of between the teeth, but a little cast shadow right there. And that starts to make it look like that tooth comes forward a little bit, okay? All right, two more things, and then I think we will be good. This great big horn that comes out here on the chin, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, these will all kind of be done the same way. If our shadow's on this side and our light's on this side, we're going to do the same thing on this. It's just like a big tooth is all. So I'm going to come down the middle, do that side gray. Say a lot of this is just repetition of the same thing. Go a little bit darker in the center. Fade it out as it moves towards the right. And I can bring it a little bit past the center and do a light gray. I want less white on there. But the important thing is that center part has that little darker area on it. A little bit of light on this left edge. Okay. All right, so you do this one, this one, this one, this one, all the same. And this isn't going to cast a shadow because there's nothing for it to cast a shadow onto. It's just outer space out here. All right, and then what I wanted to get done here is a couple of these scales. And these scales are basically dark to light is what we're trying to do. I don't know why I didn't connect that line. I'll do it right now. So I'm going to color this scale, and this scale all light gray. All the scales will be done the same way. But when I color it in, I'm going kind of in the same shape as the lines in my scales. I don't come in here right now and color this way against the grain, or this way. I'm staying with the direction that the scales are going. So if I'm up here, I'm coloring this way, this way, this way, and then this way, this way, this way, not counter to whatever's on there. All right, so I've got that one, I've got this one. That's all light gray. This will be a little different than what we've done on the other ones. There'll be no reflective light, and we're going from dark to light, but instead of just going from the edges, we're going from the tip. Down here, we're going to make this part a little darker. Down here at the tip. And then darker up our edges, and go lighter as we move towards the center of the scale. So I'll come over here on this side, do the same thing, darker as dark to light as I go to the center of the scale. And darker down on this end, gradually going lighter as we move up the scale. In some ways, this is a little more technical and slightly harder because you're not able to just follow a line. You just got to lighten pressure as you go up. Then we come to this one. I do the tip first usually. Start with the edges, move towards the center. And try to blend that little tip in so it doesn't just go dark light. It gradually goes from dark to light. Doing the same thing over here. Now this will give you a good start, and then when you look at your example on your canvas, you'll be able to kind of see what other adjustments you might need to make. But this will get you off to a decent start. I'm going to do one last scale here. It's these neck scales, or the belly scales, neck scales. And what you do is on the bottom side of these, you start darker here and get lighter as you move down towards the next scale. Just color it all the way in. A light gray, so darker there, so it makes kind of a slight shadow. I'm going to go darker right here, lighter as I move down. This one I'm just going to have to color in because some of it's underneath that webbing between the tentacles up there. And there'll be some shadows cast in here. You'll see that on the final drawing that you can use as a reference. So I'm not going to do all that stuff here. Some of it you'll just have to look at the reference and kind of figure it out. It won't be hard. It's the same kind of thing as what we did here. I'll do one more of these, darker here, lighter as it moves away. And just light gray all the way to the bottom.
Hey, Junior. This is your junior class presidency.
Let you know that our prom team ballot is open.
So get on your email, get on your mind, and go vote. It'll be open for 1 week. We'd love to hear your responses and ideas.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Okay, so we got those dark to light, and that's where we're going to quit today.